Good evening. We have Jack Posobiec with us once again from Washington, D.C. Jack is the Special Projects Director for Citizens for Trump, and he's got some inside information about what went down in the D.C. area over the weekend. So, Jack, why don't you tell us all about it?
Hi, Cari. So, yeah, I'm down here working out of the D.C. office for Citizens for Trump this weekend, and wow, this is probably one of the more electric and roller coaster kind of weekends I've ever seen in a presidential race. I've never really seen something quite like this. What I would say is, while the public saw this, they were told was a public outrage over some 11-year-old comments by Mr. Trump made in private, and then a sort of summarial dumping off of him by many congressionals and Senate candidates and elected officials. What we actually saw from the inside, and what I'm hearing now, piecing together from what was going on, was that this was actually an attempted coup, of the GOP establishment reasserting themselves over, the party that they really feel that they've lost, and in some ways are very correct on that. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, if this was a coup, who were they thinking of putting up at the top of the ticket?
So I've been able to piece this together from a network of contacts and high-level donors and just other folks that I know from my time as a political staffer and an operative here in the Beltway and in other places. So they were basically going around telling people this, that Donald Trump is going to drop out of the race, and that if you want to unendorse Trump, you better do it now, so that when he drops out, you won't look like you ever stopped endorsing him and the Democrats can't hit you. You follow me? So all these people thought that Trump was going to drop out of the race, all these elected officials. So before the hand, they, trying to look like they had the inside scoop, they all started unendorsing him. And then they were told, well, here's how it's going to work. Trump's going to drop out of the race. Pence will move up to the top of the ticket. Now, Pence was not involved in any of this. Pence would move up to the top of the ticket, and then they knew that Hillary was going to win, quote unquote, and that the plan was Ryan Rubio 2020.
Okay, a question. They said that Trump was going to drop out of the race. Did they think he was going to do this of his own accord, or that he was going to be forced out?
I think, and that's actually one of the pieces I'm trying to run down, but I think that they were running this massive psyop both on Trump and on the GOP elected officials. So they were trying to get Trump to think that he had to drop out.
Okay. They were thinking that they were going to shame him out based on these tapes.
And they were telling Pence the same stuff through other channels. So a lot of people started questioning all of a sudden, where's Pence? Where's he going? What's he doing? But then if you actually notice, and I actually took it to this level of looking up the flight plan for Mike Pence's plane. And when all these people were saying that Mike Pence is dropping out, he's not going to go to do the event, he's not going to do this, he never once changed his flight plan. He never changed his flight plan from, he was originally going to go to a fundraiser for Mr. Trump in Providence, Rhode Island. He attended that fundraiser. He spoke very highly of Mr. Trump there. He had a rally the day after the debate on Monday, and he again spoke very highly of Mr. Trump there. So the GOP that were, sort of wing of the establishment that was pushing all this stuff has a ton of egg on their face right now, because their lies have now been exposed for all to see.
Well, okay.
Mr. Trump was never going to drop out, and Mr. Pence was never going to either drop out or tell Trump he was going to drop out. There was a number of false narratives that were being thrown around all weekend.
Right, and one of them was that because Trump was supposed to campaign with Paul Ryan in Wisconsin on Saturday, and then was uninvited, unexpectedly. Uninvited.
It was planned. That was completely staged. That was completely pre-planned.
Right, and completely pre-planned. But then the rumor was that Pence was going to go take Trump's place at the rally in Wisconsin with Paul Ryan. And was that and that was never ever going to happen? That was just a rumor.
I think Pence really did intend to go at one point to represent Mr. Trump, and I believe that Trump asked him to not attend the event because it was learned that the tape was initially leaked by a Paul Ryan staffer.
Okay, so instead of, it looked for a minute over the weekend, if you were kind of paying attention, it looked for a minute that Pence was distancing himself from Trump, but what really happened was that Pence was distancing himself from Ryan. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the idea was that they were trying to orchestrate it so that Trump would drop out, right? Pence goes to the event, and then Ryan becomes the kingmaker because Pence goes to the Ryan event and then becomes the nominee there, right? You see how that was supposed to play out?
Yep.
But Trump and his people and some of us on the inside who are true believers, as we kind of call ourselves, got the right information to the right people about what was going on and said, no, don't go to that event. Just do what you were going to do. Nobody's dropping out. None of the voters actually care about this thing. Mm-hmm. This is all in everybody's heads and all that the media is pushing.
Right. I was so pleasantly surprised, Jack, by how Trump supporters on Twitter rallied around Trump on Saturday. It went from kind of quiet to absorption, and then I think the GOP leadership was hoping we would be angry at Trump, and instead, about midday on Saturday, people started getting angry for Trump. They were furious at their own party and the way instead of circling the wagons, we circled the firing squad and we start eating our own when this is so minor compared to Hillary Clinton. It looks like masks to me. We're just dropping all over the place over the weekend.
And so I can tell you, I was on Sunday. I was up at Trump Tower in New York for meetings. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting down to enjoy a taco bowl as I am wont to have while I am at the Trump Tower. You have to have it. You only get it during lunch though. If you guys go, they don't have breakfast or dinner. They only have lunch at the Trump Grill. So I'm having the taco bowl and I'm talking to the waiter and I said, were you here yesterday when they had the big rally outside and Trump went out? He says, yeah. All of a sudden, everybody in the restaurant ran out, and I said, excuse me, you guys didn't pay. What are you doing? They said, it's Trump. It's Trump. He's here. And everybody in the entire tower, it almost felt like, he said, ran out to go see Mr. Trump, to be with him, to show their support, to rally to him at that moment. When everybody was trying to make it seem like he had no support, they said, no, that's false. Mm-hmm. You have our support, possibly even more so now that we're seeing these really Soviet-style tactics being used against you. This is the type of thing that happened very often during the Soviet Union.
Yes, but it wasn't just restaurant goers, because if you saw the crowd, I mean, there were Trump flags, there were American flags, there were foam fingers, there were handheld signs.
Right, there was a rally held outside the Trump Tower all day, and they actually held a vigil. It even turned into a candlelight vigil for Mr. Trump towards the end.
I did not know that. Was that in front of Trump Tower?
It was right there. They were there all day. They were singing "God Bless America." They sang the national anthem. It was amazing. And in the middle of Manhattan, right, where we're told that there's not supposed to be any Trump supporters in Midtown Manhattan. Well, they were all there and they stayed there all day.
I didn't see any photos or video of that. A candlelight vigil for Trump in front of Trump Tower Saturday night. Absolutely amazing, Jack. I so appreciate your eyewitness account of this. Is there anything else our listeners should know?
Well, I would let them know that that unfortunately, this is probably not going to be the last step. Mm-hmm. There's still a lot of time between now and Election Day, and there will be continual attempts to subvert and possibly sabotage, is a word you could use, Mr. Trump's efforts by that sort of Paul Ryan wing of the GOP.
Yeah. Well, if anyone ever doubted there was just one party in D.C., if there was anyone doubted there was a uniparty, here's the evidence right here.
Right. And so there's who knows what other old tapes or old pictures or something that they're going to have and throw out there. But whatever it is, it doesn't change the fundamentals of the race of who Donald Trump is and who Hillary Clinton is. And if I could say one other thing to everybody, and I know Bill talks about the polls and how Mr. Trump is actually winning when you adjust for the bias and the skewing. And he's 100% correct on that. But I would also say if Hillary Clinton were truly leading by 11 points, as NBC and The Atlantic are trying to tell us, then why would they all be fighting Trump this hard?
That's a great question. And another question is, why would anyone entertain for a second who's been paying attention as to the kind of man that Trump is, think for a second, after putting $100 million of his own dollars into this race, think that he would drop out?
Mr. Trump is not entertained for a second. See, the New York Times and Politico and Washington Post always claim to have these false sources, these unnamed sources. And, oh, we have a source here. We heard Trump was so upset and Trump wants to drop out and this and that. And these are false stories. I've talked to people that were with Mr. Trump during the time, and he said, no, he didn't have the TV on. He was on the phone with people. He was talking to people. He was working.
Yep.
It wasn't. They tried to paint this picture of a lonely old man watching television and scowling, like a Ebenezer Scrooge type or something. And that's just not who Mr. Trump is. And if anyone's ever met him or seen him on TV, that's the guy he is in real life.
Yeah. And if Paul Ryan thought for a second he was going to be able to do what Trump has done, fill stadium after stadium, day after day, with the kind of support that Trump has, he's the one that's just delusional. Delusional.
Right, and I can't even imagine. This honestly shows you how much of an echo chamber so many of these people live in and how bad their personal information gathering networks are, I should say, because they actually thought that Paul Ryan would be a viable chance for president in a national campaign. And it's just simply not possible.
It's not possible. He's open borders. That cat is out of the bag with Paul Ryan. Open borders. And Trump is winning on the wall. I mean, how more out of touch can you be? Well, Jack, anything else you want to say to our listeners real quick? How can we follow you on Twitter?
Sure. So you guys can follow me on Twitter. It's Jack Posobiec. Posobiec. Our website is citizensfortrump.com. We've got a lot of stuff going on. We're partnering with Roger Stone. We're partnering with Mike Cernovich for a lot of Get Out the Vote efforts, the MAGA 3X effort, the Stop the Steal effort, ways to do not only get out the vote efforts, but also to do poll watching and, believe it or not, exit polling that we're going to be doing nationally in target districts.
Excellent.
Now, I can't tell you publicly. Maybe we can talk offline. I can tell you what our methodology will be for our exit poll, but it's a little bit different, and we're coordinating in such a way with an algorithm Mr. Roger Stone has come up with that will actually be able to expose whether or not voter fraud is going on.
Interesting. And if there is voter fraud going on, is the Trump campaign handled to do something about it?
I have not spoken to the Trump campaign directly about that. However, I do know that there are teams being assembled of lawyers, and people are looking at the recount laws in every state, which would allow for, if there were an issue regarding a voter irregularity of the numbers within certain parameters, and it varies from state to state, but what exactly would need to be filed and in what time period would that need to be filed for a recount to take place if we view there being any situation where we feel that voter fraud has taken place and it's robbed the people of their vote.
That is incredibly good to hear. Jack, we always thank you for your time. Keep fighting the good fight, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks. Great to hear you guys.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.